Open eye, feel the waves cut through me. Hypnotized by the sounds I'm breathing in. Hold tight, hold tight. Chemicals collide. Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. Dripping lights paint the skies, all because of you. Dripping lights paint the skies, only you can make me move. You can make me move. Can make me move.
And we are live. What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the 2-on-0 Hockey Show on this beautiful Wednesday evening, April 28th, 2021. Andrew Marisi, I'm Carter Bentavengo, your two co-hosts with nothing standing in the way of covering the greatest game in the world, being hockey. Andrew, my friend, how are you on this pretty nice day out here on Long Island? It's been pretty hot today.
You mentioned it's a nice day. I went to the beach earlier before, and there for a couple hours, spent the time with my friends, had a good time.
Well, it's always good to hear. And as always, I mean, do I get to mention how my beer league team won last night? Or can I not mention that?
It's up to you. It doesn't matter.
I mean, we are a hockey show after all, and we're covering everything
No,
hockey
you already
related.
mentioned it,
So
might as well just say it. Go ahead.
that is true. I mean, shout out to everybody on the Arctic Anarchy. Big first dub of the season. We are undefeated. Greatest beer league team to ever live. So, what are you giggling at? Something funny?
No, I'm good.
All right, you say so. Well, we are going to jump right in, and we have an Eastern Division standings update to get to. There were quite a few Eastern Division games yesterday. I'm just going to pull these standings up really quickly. Okay, so first place, we have the Washington Capitals with 68 points. Pittsburgh Penguins in second with 67. New York Islanders in third with 63. Boston Bruins holding that fourth spot with 62. Then we have the New York Rangers just outside with 58 and Philly with 51. I would go over New Jersey and Buffalo, but they're eliminated from the race at this point anyway. So, Andrew, it looks like, I mean, we've talked about this pretty much every episode that we've been on so far, and obviously it's important because we're we're an Eastern Division based Eastern Division based hockey show. But I mean, this Eastern Division race, it's getting very hard to predict in terms of who will and won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we've talked about this basically every single show, and everything pretty much keeps changing. I feel like, I believe one of our first couple episodes, we were like, yeah, it's probably going to be, Washington, Islanders, Pittsburgh, 1, 2, 3. And looking at it right now, you really can't predict it. Any team could really slip out. I think the only teams that are kind of secure right now are Washington and Pittsburgh. Islanders could slip out. Boston could slip out. The Rangers right now are out of the playoffs. Really, anything can happen. I know Islanders have been in a little slump recently, mainly due to their offense. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Boston, they just keep winning. Nothing really with them. And then, the Rangers, they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. So they could possibly have a chance to come up to that fourth spot, possibly even the third spot, maybe, depending on, how each team plays. Rangers have some big couple games up next, obviously trying to get into the playoffs. I think that was their goal from the start of the year. But and then Philadelphia, they're pretty much out. I know they're not mathematically out, but just the way they've been playing recently, 4-5-1 in their past 10. Nothing great. Again, defense, goaltending have really been a big issue for them. But anything can happen.
Right, and with Philly, I think it's technically, like you said, they aren't mathematically eliminated, but I mean, just the way those top four teams have been playing. I mean, obviously, you mentioned before that the Capitals and the Penguins are really the only two that seem to be truly locked in at this point, even though nobody's really clinched a playoff berth yet. But I mean, the battle for the third and fourth spot in the East Division, it's really going to be something. And I don't know if I see the Flyers making a big run for it. I mean, maybe they kind of they're down to the Rangers by 7 points right now in the standings. So, I don't know if I see them necessarily catching the Rangers. I mean, I could see them maybe closing the gap to 5 or maybe even 3 points down the line. But I mean, as of right now, I think it's going to be between the Caps, Pens, Isles, Bruins, and Rangers for that final spot. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, I'm not too confident in my Islanders right now. They haven't been very good lately. Thankfully, I didn't get to watch any of the game last night. They lost 1-0 to the Washington Capitals. Daniel Sprong scored early in this one. He scored like a minute and a half in, and after that, I mean, obviously, like I said, I didn't watch any of the game, but from what I've heard, at least from my friends, anyways, that this was probably one of the laziest games that the Islanders have played in a long time. There was no urgency in their game. There was no will to win, I guess. And at the end of the day, I mean, the Islanders are playing for their playoff lives right now, as much as I hate to admit it. And you're playing a team like the Washington Capitals, who, I mean, let's be honest, they're just trying to pad their spot at the top of the division at this point. So I'm not going to say that the points don't really matter for the Capitals, but I feel like the points matter for the Islanders a whole lot more. I mean, would you agree with that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned before that, we basically said that the Caps and the Pittsburgh Penguins already have their spot in the playoff, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, Islanders still need to fight. A couple of weeks ago, if you would have said, oh, Islanders might not make the playoffs due to their recent play, I would have been like, all right, yeah, get out of here. No way they would have been, just because, even though I'm a Ranger fan, they're still a really good hockey team. Very good defensive team. And again, I mentioned before, the only thing that they really have to work on is their offense. I mean, I know they added Palmieri and Zajac, but I mean, right now it doesn't really look like, they're that impactful. I think both of them have scored like maybe 2 or 3 goals, maybe, but I mean, they haven't really done much. I believe the Isles just got shut out 3 of their past 6 games. If you want to win in the playoffs, that's not going to let it slide. That's not going to slide. Last year in the playoffs, Islanders' offense was a little bit better. But I really don't know what happened with them. But yeah, I mean, if they're going to want to win, or at least even just make the playoffs at first, they're going to have to keep scoring.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think, it's tough to say, because I think I like the way that Palmieri plays. I think Zajac fits well into the Islander system as well. But I've said this before on this show and on the Mac and Jack Sports Show, which actually takes place tomorrow morning, if any of you want to tune in to hear my insight on the NHL. But I don't know how they're going to fare in the playoffs without Anders Lee. I think that Anders Lee is a very important part of this team, regardless of whether or not people want to recognize that. That's on them, I guess. But at the end of the day, I mean, Islander fans are the ones who know about the value that Lee has, both as a leader, on the ice and off the ice as well. So, I mean, obviously right now we're talking about their goal scoring prowess, and before Lee went down, he was leading the team in goals. I mean, now he's at 12. Obviously, I think Barzell, Nelson, and I believe Jordan Eberle have all passed him at this point. But that's not the point. I think the point is that you're missing a really solid power forward and goal scorer in Anders Lee, and I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I see the Islanders getting in. I think they're obviously limping to the finish line right now a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, we've seen it over the course of the last 2 playoff runs. Granted, they only went to the second round in 2019, but obviously last year when they made it to the Eastern Conference Final, their offense seems to come through in the big moment, right? I mean, we've seen it a couple of times in elimination games against the Panthers, Capitals, and Flyers specifically in the playoff bubbles. So I don't know, man. I mean, I don't want to say I'm getting scared just yet, and now I get to pull up my favorite headline of the episode here. I don't know if it's time to panic or not. I've seen a lot of Islander fans trying to stay optimistic. I've seen a lot of Islander fans starting to turn on the team a little bit. I don't know how to feel. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm not too sure how to feel just yet because I want to have faith in this team. I really do. But at the end of the day, I don't know how far I see them going in the playoffs, even if they make it there. I mean, I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts on this as someone who, obviously I know you don't like the Islanders, of course, but if you were a fan of the Islanders, would you be concerned at all right now? Is there any reason to quote unquote panic, if you will? I mean, what do you think?
Right now, yes and no. I mean, I would be a little nervous. I wouldn't say, it's time to hit the panic button right now. But I will say this. If the Islanders drop their next two games against the Rangers, yes, it is time to panic. Because if they drop those two games and Boston gets, I believe, either 1 or 2 points, the Islanders will be in fourth place and the Rangers will be 1 point behind them. And right now, the Rangers are hot. It happened last year with the Rangers, too. Rangers, at the end of the regular season, were on a hot streak. I believe they played their last game against Colorado. They didn't win that game. They lost in overtime that game. But they were on a nice little hot streak at the end of the season. And honestly, I think the Rangers could do that right now. And I know I hate to talk about the Rangers right now, when this is an Isles, topic. But, I mean, for the Isles, yeah, I mean, it's getting a little nervous for them. Obviously, mentioned before, they're not really scoring that much. Their defense has always been solid. Defense has been solid throughout and out. And I think for now, if the Islanders are panicking a little bit, I think they should start Varlamov. And I'm not saying Sorokin is a bad goalie at all. He's still a very good goalie. I am a big fan of him. I know when we're talking personally, I always make fun of him and whatnot, but he's actually a really good goalie. But I think Varlamov has just been the better goalie this season all around. And I think the rest of the way, if they want to make sure they make the playoffs, I think they should just start him.
I'm going to say this, though. I mean, granted, I know we have our differences and everything, and we have to go back and forth a little bit, but they actually couldn't even start Varlamov yesterday because he wasn't dressed. So they had Sorokin starting and they had Corey Schneider backing up. I mean, obviously, I get your point, but I would argue even that if you go if you split with the Rangers, even if you go 50-50, the panic meter starts to go up a little bit. That's just my opinion on it anyway. I think that if you're the Islanders and you're looking to win these next two games, regardless of how you win them, right? You could win them in a 7-0 win in both games. You could win them in a 1-0 shootout win in both games. At the end of the day, you need points. And if you're the Islanders, you need points now. I think after this, I think it's I know they play the Sabres twice and they play the Devils twice. So granted, that's a relatively, I don't want to call it easy, but compared to the other teams in their division, it looks like an easy stretch of games. So I don't know if the Islanders can necessarily afford to wait until that stretch, though, to start winning. I think that obviously the winning's got to start now. And, this is going to be a big test against a hot Rangers team. I know that a few weeks ago we were talking about, it was kind of flipped, right? The Rangers were coming off of a 4-game win streak against the Devils, who, let's be honest, weren't the greatest team in the league this year. In their next game, they played what many people to consider to be a Stanley Cup contender in the Islanders, and the Islanders won pretty handily. So at the end of the day, I mean, this is a big stretch of games for the Islanders. They seem to do this quite a bit, though, too. I mean, even before the Barry Trotz era anyway, it's always seemed as if whenever the Islanders were on pace to make the playoffs, it always seemed as if they would get hot, during the midway point to, I would say, around 60% mark of the season. And then, starting with in a regular season anyway, what would be the March and April type of stretch, they would just bomb certain games. They just would not look good at all. They would go into the playoffs limping. And I mean, they would oftentimes they would lose in the first round. But I think obviously the structure of Barry Trotz has kind of changed the mentality of this team. So I don't know. I know we'll be looking forward to that 2-game set against the Rangers, and I don't know. We'll have something to talk about on Friday, that's for sure.
And you're going to the game tomorrow, actually, right?
I am, yeah. Invading enemy territory. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, and just one other thing I want to mention with the Islanders. Against playoff teams this year, which would be the Bruins, Capitals, and the Penguins, they're 9-11-3. for 21 points. Does that concern you at all? If you do make the playoffs, that you're not going to be able to win these games in the playoffs against these teams?
I think it depends on who they play. And I know that sounds like me being biased, but I really do think it depends on who they play, because I think if, I wouldn't be saying this maybe 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years, looking back anyway. But ironically enough, I want the Bruins in the first round if I'm the Islanders. The Islanders have done well against the Bruins this year. Yeah, they lost their most recent game to them, but at the end of the day, I mean, the Islanders just haven't looked good against either the Capitals or the Penguins. So I don't know. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that I would actually want to play the Bruins in the first round of the playoffs, but right now it's not looking good for them. And do you have their record split by any chance about what their record is against non-playoff teams, just so we can kind of
against non-playoff teams? No, I don't. Unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Okay. You said they were what, 9-11 and
3.
All right. I mean, that's not terrible. If the
It's
Islanders
still
want
not
to be,
awful.
if you want to be looked at as a legit contender, though, I mean, that number should be over 500 in my opinion.
Yeah.
The fact that you're 2 games under 500 is a bit concerning, but I would, as of right now, I'm putting my concern meter at like a 5. If they lose both games against the Rangers, maybe it'll go up to like a 6 or a 7, maybe 7.5. But I know you'll never let me hear the end of it either. If the Rangers make it,
if the Rangers take over the Islanders spot, oh my God, it's just me, not even me, just all of our Ranger friends that we would. Oh yeah, we wouldn't let you hear the end of it.
That'll just be fantastic. I can't wait to hear that if it winds up happening. But we'll see.
All right. So speaking of the Rangers, they had another game last night against the Buffalo Sabres, and it was another huge win for the Rangers, 3-1. Brendan Smith scored his 5th of the year. Lafreniere scored his 10th career goal and 10th of the season, making him double digits. And then
Sorry, I had a cough. Trash.
And then Zibanejad hit the 20-goal mark for the 4th straight season. Rangers are looking pretty good. I mean, you can't lie. Out of the past couple of games, Rangers have looked good. I mean, this past game wasn't their best game. I watched it. I think through the first 2 periods, they were looking really awful. Brendan Smith did get the first goal of the game, which brought up their confidence a little bit. But then Sam Reinhart scored a power play goal at the end of the second period. But I think from there, David Quinn in the locker room was just, hey guys, we need to win this game. Obviously Buffalo is not the greatest team, but they're still a hardworking team, and it shows out there. The Rangers were a little sloppy. I think the first period the shots were 16-6 Buffalo. So Igor Shesterkin, he got some work done, 36 saves, 37 shots. And then Strome got 2 assists, which gave him 300 career points. So congratulations to him. And then I actually want to show this Zibanejad goal real quick. It was a nice play overall by Kreider and Zibanejad. If I can get it here real quick. Let's see. Here we go. So it is on the power play. Rangers basically had this puck the entire way in the zone. We see here a bad shot. Kreider, what a beautiful pass behind the back, no look, right to Mika Zibanejad. They'll probably show it again, I believe. I would assume so. That was the 3rd goal, and that was the goal that Zibi hit 20. So that was a big goal for the Rangers. Still not that much time left, 6 minutes left in the period. But we see Fox here looking, gives it to Strome. Strome tries to shoot it, actually gets whiffed on it. And then Kreider just made a really nice pass to Zibanejad to score.
That was a nice play all around, especially against Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, a NHL franchise mode legend. So,
no, he actually played really good this game. 38 saves, 41 shots. Rangers tested him a little bit. So, but I mean, he's looking like the next, at least the Sabres franchise goalie for the next couple of years. I know he's only played 2 games, but in those 2 games, he's looked very, very well.
Yeah, I know I think he won was that his NHL debut against, not the Rangers, but
against Boston.
They played Boston and they won. I think it was 6-. I'm trying to think. Was it last Friday?
I'm not 100% sure. I can check real quick, possibly.
I don't know the date of that, but I think he won his NHL debut And for those of you who play NHL franchise mode, like myself, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is actually a pretty solid goalie to build your future dynasty Buffalo Sabres team with.
It was Friday, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, all right. I mean, a three goal against game isn't terrible, but I mean, Luukkonen's a young goalie too, and I would imagine. I mean, he's the future of the Buffalo Sabres. Though, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, him. I mean, I don't want to say this, but maybe Jack Eichel. We just don't know if he's going to be moved in the summer or not. If not, then yeah, he'll be a part of that. I mean, I'm honestly hoping for the best for the Sabres. They've just been a really bad team for the past 10 years. I think that was the last time they made the playoffs 10 years ago. And just every year, I just feel like, they get players, they add veteran players, and then, they're looking to make playoff runs. I believe their GM this past summer was like, oh, if we get this guy Hall, I think we could be a Stanley Cup contender. Obviously, did not happen. But, I mean, yeah, I'm hoping that, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, I think that's how you say his name, he should be doing good for the Sabres for their future.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how his future plays out in Buffalo. I do have to say this though, I don't understand like the idea of. It seems like every time Buffalo starts to build their roster up, at the end of the day, it just kind of comes crumbling down, and they have to wind up
and then they just trade them away.
It's very weird. Away. I don't think I've ever seen this either. Like obviously, when a team is bad in the NHL, they seem to be bad for quite a long time. They don't really seem to have stretches where it's like, 1 year they could be looked at as a playoff team. Next year it's like a draft lottery contender. It like with Buffalo, it seems to go back and forth. But with some of the other bad teams over the past decade or so, I mean, namely in Edmonton with obviously the Islanders and it seems like when you're bad, and when you're good, you're good. With Buffalo, it's very hard to get a read on them sometimes, so I have no idea. But I don't know. Guess we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that the Sabres make the playoffs next year, but I'm gonna put any money on that because I may or may not have had them making it this year. So I'm not gonna mention that. Anyway, speaking of another team that actually has been eliminated from the playoffs in the Eastern Division, the New Jersey Devils finally snapped their 10-game losing streak against the Philadelphia Flyers, a 6-4 final. And I mean, again, I didn't really get to watch a whole lot of the game, but from what I've heard, you were texting in the group chat a little bit yesterday. I mean, did the Devils look very good? I mean, did they look like a lucky breaks here and there?
Just ask that again. I'm sorry, you just broke up real quick.
Sorry about that. I'm dealing with like the McDonald's Wi-Fi over here. Obviously we're talking about the Devils and the Flyers, right? You were actually texting in a group chat that we're both in yesterday about actually reaching out to one of our other friends who happens to be a Devil fan, and you mentioned that it looked like the Devils were playing some pretty solid hockey. I don't know if you caught any of the game at all, but did the Devils look good, or what? Did you think that maybe they were just getting a few breaks here and there, or?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of the game. Obviously, it was more focused with the Ranger game, but Devils scored the first 3 goals of the game. They looked really good from there, and then they let up 3 straight goals. They had 3 straight goals, and then in the third period, they gave up 3 straight goals. They actually gave up 2 goals in the third. They did score 1 in the second for the Flyers. They did, but then actually the Connor Carrick scored right after, and then Travis Sanheim scored right after. So it was a 4-4 game in the third period, and then honestly, from there, it looked like the Devils kind of just took over the game. Igor Sharangovich scored his 12th of the year, who's been a pretty underrated rookie, in my opinion. Would you say? Carter?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go. I said Sharangovich. He's been a pretty underrated rookie, would you say?
100%. I think with Sharangovich, I'm going to be honest, I really didn't know who he was coming out of the gate. I saw him, I mean, obviously I was watching, I think his first game when he scored against I want to say it was Boston, I think. in the season opener, or it might have been.
I think it was
It,
Boston.
yeah, I know it was against Boston. I just don't know which game it was, but yeah, I mean, Sharon Govich has looked really, really good for this Devils team. I mean, he's another young forward that I think the Devils could use some use in. I really like the way he's played with Jack Hughes this year. I mean, I think him and Hughes have built some really impressive chemistry, and um, I mean, him, Hughes, Jesper Brad, Nico Hischier. We've talked quite a bit about Alexander Holtz down in the minors. So this is looking like a Devils team that's gonna be contending for a playoff spot and maybe even a Stanley Cup for a long, long time. Of course, up there with your New York Rangers.
Yeah, I think really what the Devils need to add to their team is probably like 3 more veteran players. Definitely one top 4 defenseman. I think that's kind of really what they're missing right now. I'm not going to consider PK Subban a top 4 defenseman. I don't know. I just really haven't liked this game the last couple of years. Holding a 9 million AAV. I don't think he's really worth that much. And honestly, I remember when he did get traded to the Devils, we all thought it was a steal for the Devils. But now, honestly, I wouldn't say it was a steal. It was a pretty good trade for the Predators. I forget what the trade was for, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of PK Subban. But yeah, I think they should definitely add a top 4 defenseman in the offseason.
Do you think maybe they go after a guy like David Savard if he happens to leave Tampa Bay?
I think it's very possible. I think he would be a good fit for that with that Devils team.
I agree, and I think I think we've mentioned this before that say that again. This is obviously thinking very far down the line, but say that the Devils they do sign Savard, right, and in the future they're not in the playoff spot. You can sell him and get quite a bit. I mean, Columbus got a first-round pick out of him this year, so say Savard plays with New Jersey and he brings his value up a little bit. You could be looking at a first-round pick and maybe even more.
Maybe even more.
I don't know. It'll definitely be interesting. But we're going to move on here. We have, I believe you have coverage of the Bruins and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So you want to give us an insight about what happened last night I believe it was
sure.
in Pittsburgh, if I'm not.
Yes, I think it was in Pittsburgh. I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on it. But yeah, Bruins beat the Penguins 3-1, as you see right there. It did snap the Penguins' losing streak. I believe they had a 7-game winning streak, if I'm correct. Do you know by any chance?
Who, Pittsburgh or Boston?
Pittsburgh.
But what going into last night's game? You mean?
Yeah, going into last night's game.
I think it was a 4-game. Just a
4-game. Oh, I thought it was 7. Sorry about that. But yeah, again, it was a same game we kind of saw on Sunday night. No goals into the first period, and then a late goal by David Krejci in the second period, and then kind of really from there, Boston kind of just took over the game. Brad Marchand getting his 26th, Taylor Hall getting his 6th of the year. Taylor Hall has been really good with the Bruins. Obviously, we both know Buffalo probably did bring him down in value. Obviously, I believe he only scored 2 goals, and he's scored double now for the Buffalo Sabres. What do you think his next contract could look like? And where do you think he would go? Would he stay in Boston? Would he ship out? I want to hear your thoughts on this.
We're talking about Taylor Hall, right?
Yes.
I don't know. It's a good question. I think, I mean, at least from what I've heard, based on quotes from him and his agent, anyways, that I think the long-term goal is for him to sign an extension in Boston. For how long, I don't know. I think that's going to depend on what the Bruins salary cap situation is looking like, and people also got to remember that the expansion draft this summer as well. So we might not be seeing Taylor Hall either re-sign with the Bruins or sign somewhere else until after the expansion draft itself. So I don't know. I mean, he's been playing well in Boston so far. I don't think that he'll necessarily get like an $8 million contract like he did up in Buffalo, but I would say, I mean, I feel like if he signed in Boston, it would be a long-term thing. So I would say 5 years plus. As for the as for the financial aspect of it, I mean, I don't know. I would say probably 5 million, 5 plus is a good bet.
I would say that's a
Again, I don't
good.
think he's yeah, I don't think he's getting 8, but I mean, I would say between like I'll say between 5 and 7. I think that's
Yeah,
reasonable.
I was thinking the same thing. And right here, I actually want to show the goal. It was a pretty nice goal by Taylor Hall. You see him coming up the left wing, passing it up to Krejci, who drops it right back to him. Nice little move on Crosby, and then just snipes it top left, high blocker. We'll see it again. It was just a nice overall play, good passing play. And he's just been fitting well. I think him and David Krejci have played really good together. A little dangle right here against Sidney Crosby, one of the best players in this league today. And, we just see a nice shot. Nothing Jari could really do about that. Little chip. And then, again, just a beautiful shot. You really can't ask for much more right there.
That's a nice play. That was a little like like a self saucer pass or something. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, no, it was a little just right under Crosby's stick. Obviously we know Crosby for his offensive skill, but I feel like people don't realize his defensive skills as well. He's been decent defensive wise, but yeah, again, nice little move, and then actually Tuukka Rask picked up an assist last night, his second of the year, and then he made 25 saves on 26 shots, and then the one thing I want to mention about the Bruins, Jake DeBrusk hasn't been playing at all, I think, for the Bruins. Do you see the Bruins shipping him somewhere in the offseason or maybe letting him fall to Seattle?
I'm going to be completely honest. I thought that once I heard that the Bruins were in on Taylor Hall, I thought that he was going to be part of the trade package going back the other way. Obviously, that didn't wind up happening. I guess Buffalo liked Anders Bjork better. But I don't. I don't. I don't hate the way Jake DeBrusk plays. I think that he can be a good player. I think he's shown signs of, being a solid player at the NHL level. But I don't know what it is. I don't know if maybe maybe he has a problem with Bruce Cassidy or something. That Cassidy doesn't trust him on the ice or something, or something along those lines. But I think DeBrusk would benefit from a change of scenery. I think that the whole experiment, you could call it, with him and the Bruins, I don't want to say it hasn't worked out, but I think that the Bruins were expecting more out of him than what they've gotten. I don't think they would let him fall to Seattle, though. I think that if they were going to move on from Jake DeBrusk at all, I think they would want to trade him just because, he might not be like an elite offensive player, but you can still you can get quite a bit of value out of him, I would say.
Yeah, this season not having his best season, 34 games played, 4 goals, 7 assists for only 11 points. So it will definitely be interesting to see where, he decides to go. If not decides where he goes, but, where the Bruins decide, if they do want to trade him or not, or just maybe give him a shot next year, again, if he does have a problem with, Bruce Cassidy, maybe be like, hey, just work something in the offseason and possibly try to fix that relationship, and hopefully he'll crack the roster.
Well, before we move on to our next topic here, we're going to clear G really quickly. You're Don Sweeney, right? You're the GM. You're trade Jake DeBrusk. What are you trying to get back for him? Do you think that, do you think you'd be able to get a roster player back for him? Do you think maybe like a high draft pick would be in order? What are you trying to get back if you're the Bruins?
Well, if I'm looking at the Taylor Hall trade, for example, I know DeBrusk and Hall are not on the same level, but you got a second pick. You gave up a second-round pick for Hall. I think you would try to get a second or third-round pick if possible for DeBrusk. I don't know how old DeBrusk is. Actually, let me check right now. He's only 24 years old. So he's still young. So maybe you could get a second-round pick out of him, maybe even a first-round pick out of him. I highly doubt it, but if I were trying to get rid of DeBrusk, I would probably ask for a second, maybe either 2 low-end prospects or, 1 roster player.
See, I think I like the thing that you mentioned with maybe getting a second or a third-round pick out of him. I think you can go 2 ways here if you're the Bruins. I think if you're asking for either a second or a third-round pick, I think that's all you're going to get back. Because I don't think you can ask for a second or a second or a third round pick and a prospect in return. I think at that point it's just a little bit much. So I would say if you're asking for a second or a third, then it's just the draft pick. If you're asking for a fourth or below, then you might be able to toss a prospect or two in there. But I don't know. Personally, I like the way that DeBrusque plays. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing him maybe on the Isles. Who knows?
Who knows? Anything can really happen.
I don't know. Guess so, but I don't know. Kind of see what happens with that, and we'll move on. Speaking of moving on, we got both Florida teams clinching spots in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night, and as of right now, anyway, we're going to focus more on the I guess you could call it the bigger market. The Tampa Bay Lightning, the defending Stanley Cup champions, are going back to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They currently sit in third place in the Central Division, and Andrew, I was looking at the standings the other day. Is it me or is it extremely, I don't want to call it frightening, but it's very it's odd to see Tampa sitting in a third seed in any division, let alone a Central Division that many people expected them to win. Is this just based on maybe they've played a little bit poorly throughout the regular season, or is this just because of teams like Carolina and Florida just playing absolutely out of their minds this year?
I think it's kind of a little bit of both. Obviously, Carolina and Florida, playing probably one of their best hockey seasons, in recent history. And then you also have to realize that, Tampa Bay also didn't have one of their best players in Kucherov at all this season. So obviously he was a big factor, in them. I mean, obviously Tampa is still a very good team, but Kucherov should be returning for playoffs very soon. I'm not 100% sure when his expected date is, but yeah, I mean, Carolina has just been probably one of the best teams this year. 32 wins, 10 losses, 7 overtime losses for 71 points. I think that's best in the NHL. It is. We considered Vegas probably being the best team in the NHL, but I feel like we're sleeping on Carolina. I don't know how people are sleeping on Carolina, but they're first in their division and first in the league. But yeah, I mean, when you have a team that's doing that good, obviously, I think Tampa will be fine. I don't think it's a bad thing that they're going to be in third place. If they do stick in third place and Florida does stick in second place, we will get to see a Tampa Bay-Florida matchup, which would probably be a very, very good series. I think Tampa will win that series, though, if that does happen, but I guess we'll have to see.
I would love to see a Battle of Florida series in the first round, personally. I think this has been one of the more underrated rivalries in the NHL, at least in my mind anyway. And now that, obviously Tampa's been a Stanley Cup contender for the past, I would say around the past decade or so. And with Florida, let's be honest, I mean, they've struggled to put a playoff team together for a long time. And with last night's win, they actually clinched their first official playoff berth since 2016. I know that they made the postseason last year, but they technically didn't make the actual playoffs. So that's I have to be specific for those critics out there who are gonna change stuff around on me. But I just want to share a hot take with you really quickly, and this might be the first hot take that we've had on the show anyway. And that's I think if Carolina and Tampa play each other in a best-of-7 series, I'm picking Carolina to win. And I think they do that I'll give them 6 games max. I don't think it goes 7. I think Carolina's that good. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, that's a pretty hot take. I mean, saying that from defending Stanley Cup champions, but, it's not the first time we've seen it. In 2018, when the Caps won, they played against the Carolina Hurricanes and they lost, and I think it was 7 games. So, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily shock me. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I mean, I still like the way that Tampa's been playing. I just think the only reason why is because I think Tampa just has a better goalie, better defense. I would say their offense is kind of similar. I would still give the edge to Tampa Bay, but I don't know. It would definitely be a good series to watch. I would still have Tampa Bay though winning.
I don't know. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see. I really hope that we get to see a Carolina versus Tampa playoff series, and I'm going to be completely real. If the Islanders don't wind up making it either at all or making it very far, I want Carolina to win. I love the Canes team. I know that obviously they beat the Islanders in the playoffs a few years ago, but there are just some teams around the league that I like. Yeah, I know they swept the Islanders, but I don't hate the Hurricanes. I don't know. I
Yeah,
like their
kind of
team. I
same
think
thing
they're a
with the
lot of fun to
Rangers
watch.
last
And
year. Obviously,
um,
the right Hurricanes swept them in the qualifying rounds. But again, I've always liked Carolina. I mean, I think really ever since Jeff Skinner was on the team, I kind of was like, all right, this team's kind of chill. They're probably one of my top 5 favorite teams in the league. So I mean, it would be good to see. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be good to see them beating Tampa Bay, but I just don't see it happening.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of disagree with that. I think that seeing Carolina take down the defending Stanley Cup champions would be a lot of fun to see. And at the same time, I mean, as much as we're crediting Tampa with being the Stanley Cup champion, this mighty team, I think that would show how good Carolina is, would it not? I mean, let's be honest, this isn't a team that's had a lot of playoff appearances over the last 10, 15 seasons, right? So, I mean, taking out a team that just won the Stanley Cup, and let's not forget here, they're not necessarily, unexperienced with taking out Stanley Cup champions either. They did it in the first round in 2019 against the Washington Capitals. So, could we see it happen again if they happen to face off? It could. It very well could happen. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna,
no, it definitely could
I'm not
happen.
gonna. Oh, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens here, but uh, I think we've given the Tampa Bay Lightning enough credit, at least for today, anyway. I actually want to move on here, and I want to move on to kind of. I don't want to call them the little brother team in Florida, and I don't, that sounds disrespectful, but at the same time, I mean, the Florida Panthers, they have been absolutely incredible this year, and I think a lot of people picked them to miss the playoffs, especially in that Central Division. I know that I had Carolina and Tampa making it. Obviously, I had Nashville and Dallas in there as well. So, I mean, I had the Florida Panthers on the outside looking in, and I'm going to be completely real. I think they've blown away everybody's expectations in terms of what they've done this year. What have you seen out of this Florida Panthers club, at least this season, anyway?
Honestly, I think Huberdeau's kind of just been, their number one player. I know Barkov's obviously their captain, and he's still a really good player. But I really just like Huberdeau. I think he's probably one of the most underrated players in the league now. He's definitely one of my favorite players. He can shoot, he can skate, he can, he has stick handles and everything. I think he's really been good for them. Their goaltending's been decent, and their defense hasn't been that bad either. And if you think about it, they did lose Aaron Ekblad to a devastating injury. And if they had him, I think they would probably be 10 times better. Aaron Ekblad is a very solid defensive and offensive wise. But yeah, I mean, Florida, they've just been a very solid hockey team overall. I mean, they've just played the game right.
I like the fact that you said they play the game right. I like this Panthers team, and I know that I've given them a lot of issues on the show anyway. But I want to hear your thoughts on this really quickly, and maybe I'll chime in depending on how I feel about the Florida Panthers. But they're currently sitting second in the Central Division with a record of 32-14-5, 69 points currently. Andrew, you had to answer this completely honest. Are the Florida Panthers for real, or are they a fraud?
I think they're for real. I mean, like I said before, they play the game right. I think they have a good offense. They have a good defense. Their goalies have been very solid this year. Bobrovsky having, one hell of a season, compared to last season at least. Again, I know Sam Bennett, recently acquired by the Calgary Flames. He said he's been loving playing for the Panthers. His game is elevated. Again, they're just a solid hockey team. They play the right way, and I think they are for real.
I don't know if I agree with the Panthers being for real. I hate to keep giving them more problems, but I don't think that they can get to the, not that I don't think they can get to the playoffs, obviously, because they're in it right now. They just clinched. I don't see them beating a team like Tampa or Carolina in the first round. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't really care where Florida finishes in the division. They could win the division for all I care. I don't see them going far in the playoffs. I mean, say the Panthers do win the.
Uh-oh. All right, so we're having some malfunctions right here. Carter, obviously doesn't have that great internet. Sorry to see that. I really can't control anything, but let's see. Up there he is. Hey, Carter.
Sorry about that. The McDonald's Wi-Fi has struck again.
All right.
Where was I? I forgot what I was saying.
Panthers not being for real.
All right, the Panthers being mediocre. So, Florida, I don't see them. I honestly don't see them getting very far in the playoffs. I think that, say Florida does win the division and you get the quote unquote easy matchup in one of, I believe right now it's either Dallas and Nashville, right? I mean, yeah, can the Panthers beat either one of those two teams in the best of 7? I think so. I think they'll have a little bit of difficulty against the Dallas Stars, but I see the Panthers getting to the second round there. Good luck trying to beat Carolina or Tampa, whoever comes out of that other series then. I don't see this team making it very far. I see the second round for them as the absolute max, and I think part of that's just because they don't have Aaron Ekblad. And you mentioned it before. Aaron Ekblad is the best defenseman on this Panthers team. He is kind of their heart and soul in terms of their defensive ability. And without an Aaron Ekblad type of player, I don't think he's on the team. Wait, is he on the team?
Yeah, I think he is.
Oh, you know what? I was thinking about last year when he was a Washington Capital. I forgot about Radko Gudas. I also forgot about elite defenseman Mackenzie Weegar. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are high on the Florida Panthers. I'm not buying it. Up until if the Panthers get into the playoffs, obviously I got to stop saying that. They're in the playoffs. If the Panthers start their playoff series and they look like a Stanley Cup contender, they're dominating the team that they're playing against. Could my mind change? Maybe. But I don't see this Panthers team being like the cream of the crop like everybody's talking. I just don't see it. So I don't know.
We'll have to see. Well, one of us will be right. One of us will be right.
I am thinking it's me. That's just my opinion. Speaking of that, actually, we're in the works right now, putting together a playoff show. So I don't know if we're gonna do it with our friends or maybe we could try and do a show with the people from this network. Maybe we'll do 2, depending on what the schedule is looking like. So if you guys want to see that, make sure you comment, tune in. I guess the hard thing with that would be, I don't know about you, but I don't know when the playoffs are supposed to start. Obviously, they've moved the schedule around and everything, so it seems like they have a different date for the playoffs to start every other day now. So
yeah, we'll see.
I don't know. See what happens with that. We're going to move on here to a team that looks to be building for their Stanley Cup contender future. Their top prospect for the Los Angeles Kings, Quinton Byfield, is set to make his NHL debut tonight. Obviously, he was drafted right behind Alexei Lafreniere. Andrew, I mean, Quinton Byfield hasn't been the greatest in the AHL this year, but I don't know about you. I'm sure you'll share our thoughts with everybody here. I think he's just getting a shot because, let's be honest, the Kings are so far out of the playoff picture that I don't know if they'll be able to get back into it. And maybe they just want to give Quinton Byfield some NHL experience. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's kind of really what they're doing. I think that's what really teams should be doing. If they're not really in the playoffs, I'd say screw it. Throw in some of your top prospects. Get them some NHL time. Just so they know what they're focusing on next season. What they're getting ready for next season. But yeah, Byfield, obviously, you mentioned the second pick in this past year's draft. Huh? Hello?
Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah. Did you not hear me?
Oh, no, I didn't. I don't know if it's buffering on my end or if it's buffering on your end, but it was like showing a black screen for me, so I didn't hear anything of what you just said. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. I'll say it again. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's good for teams to bring up their young prospects. For the last 10 games of the year or so or what so. Just so they're like, all right, hey, this is what the NHL's like. This is what you're going to be working with for 82 games probably next year. So we want you to focus on these next 10 games. Prove to us why you should be in the NHL next year, and what to expect for next year. But yeah, Byfield obviously was the second pick in this past draft. And in the AHL, he hasn't done great, but nothing awful. 8 goals, 12 assists for 30 games. And then last season for the OHL Sudbury Wolves, 32 goals, 50 assists for 82 points. So obviously that was pretty good. He kind of reminds me of Evgeny Malkin, but without the flashiness.
I can see that.
He's a
They're both.
big player, big center, can shoot, can skate, got good hands, but again, just not as flashy as Malkin.
I like that comparison actually. I didn't even think of that, to be completely honest. But I don't know. I'm excited to see Byfield play. I think I think part of me was kind of expecting him to make the Kings lineup out of training camp, and when he didn't, I'm thinking anyway that maybe he just didn't impress the Kings enough to make that jump to the NHL, which is completely understandable given that he's, I want to say, either 18 or 19.
Yeah,
So it's so difficult to jump into not even just the NHL, but into a professional sport when you're 18, 19, even 20 years old. It's so difficult for these young players to really kind of get acclimated to the professional game. And we've seen a couple of players, if we're talking about just the NHL anyway, we've seen a couple of teenagers and even a couple of players in their young 20s over the last couple of seasons make it seem very, very easy when in reality it's not. So I wish all the best to Quentin Byfield. I hope that I hope this is the start of a very long career for him. I believe I don't know who the Kings are playing tonight. They're playing the Ducks. Okay, so he'll be making his debut at the Staples Center. To put your money where your mouth is. Does he score tonight? Do you think Byfield gets on the board in his first game?
Goal, I wouldn't say maybe he scores, maybe a point. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is against the Ducks, who, obviously haven't been the best this year. I believe they're second to last, in the league. So, I mean, it's definitely a good, it's a bad team to play against, your first game in the NHL. So, I mean, anything could happen.
Yeah, I agree. And with a guy like Quentin Byfield, it's definitely exciting to see young talent, play their first NHL game. So I remember when, obviously, we've had Matt Barzal play his first game for the Islanders. You've gotten to watch guys like Fox and Kakko, and most recently with Alexei Lafreniere play his first game. So it's always super fun when your team's top prospect gets to play in his first game, and I'm sure Kings fans are feeling the excitement out there on the West Coast tonight. We're going to move on here. We got some injury updates to get to really quickly. Florida Panthers goaltender Chris Driedger will miss the next 3 games due to a lower body injury. Wasn't specified what that lower body injury was, so obviously all the best to him. Chicago Blackhawks defenseman Adam Boqvist is done for the season after suffering a broken wrist. So that's a pretty big blow to a Blackhawks team that looked like they were going to contend for a playoff spot. I mean, recently they've fallen out a little bit, but Boqvist means a lot to this Blackhawks team, does he not?
Yeah, he's one of the younger defensemen, not even just on the team, but just, in the league. He's only 20 years old. But putting up some decent stats this year. 2 goals, 14 assists for 16 points. Nothing insane by any means, but I mean, for when you're a 20-year-old playing in the NHL, I would say that's pretty good stats for him. And yeah, obviously Chicago not really looking like they're going to make the playoffs this year. I believe they're only 5 points out, so it's very possible that they could, but probably more likely than not that they won't make the playoffs. But I mean, yeah, obviously, still any injury, it's devastating to see. But wishing all the best for him in his recovery.
I would agree. And we have one more piece of injury news to get to. Montreal Canadiens forward Jonathan Drouin will take an indefinite leave of absence from the team for personal reasons, that coming from the Canadiens themselves. Normally, I mean, we wouldn't group that with an injury per se, but he's been placed on LTIR, so maybe this is an injury behind the scenes that we don't know about. Obviously, we wish all the best to Jonathan Drouin in his injury recovery. And before we go, really quickly, I mean, we have some playoff updates to get to here. So Toronto can clinch a playoff spot in the North Division tonight if they beat Montreal in regulation. Let me see if I have this right. And if Ottawa beats Vancouver in regulation, Ottawa's currently up 4-2 on the Vancouver Canucks. So I mean, this could be happening if Toronto manages to win tonight. The second scenario for the Leafs to clinch would be if they defeat the Canadiens in overtime, Ottawa beats the Canucks in regulation, and Edmonton/Winnipeg, that game ends in regulation. So a lot of scenarios for the Maple Leafs to clinch tonight. Let's see. We got an elimination scenario here with the Ottawa Senators. The Sens will be eliminated if they lose to Vancouver in regulation, and if Montreal beats Toronto in regulation. So we kind of got some conflicting opinions here if you're a Senators fan or a Leafs fan. And finally, Anaheim will be eliminated from playoff contention today if they lose to the Kings in any fashion, or if the St. Louis Blues beat the Minnesota Wild. So, Andrew, we're gonna have you make one more prediction here before the end of the show. Toronto, do they clinch a playoff spot tonight?
Tonight, who are they playing again? Oh, you said they're playing Montreal. I think this season they've been pretty decent against Montreal. And you said if Ottawa wins, correct?
Let's see. So if the Leafs beat the Habs in regulation and Ottawa beats Vancouver in regulation, then the Leafs will be in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
All right. I mean, I could definitely see it. Again, it's not like a must-win for Toronto. That they need to make this. They're basically in at this point. But I'll make another prediction, say that they're in tonight.
As for Ottawa and Anaheim, do you think they're both out for tonight?
Not Ottawa. They are up right now, 4-2, unless they blow a 2-goal lead to Vancouver. And then Ottawa losing in any fashion to the Kings. I think the Kings have been a better team this year. Obviously, Anaheim, second worst in the league. I think Anaheim will be mathematically eliminated tonight.
Well, I agree with that. And you never want to see a team get eliminated. But, of course, as teams get to, start to be eliminated, of course, obviously that means that teams can start clinching, and that, of course, means playoffs are right around the corner. So we're definitely getting excited for that. We're hoping that both of our teams can clinch playoff spots in the near future. But, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be a fun race to the end. I don't know if we're both going to make it. We might, honestly. I mean, if Boston starts to fall out, the Islanders start to win a little bit, we could see both the Rangers and the Islanders make the playoffs. So that would be something for New York hockey, man, if both sides could make the playoffs.
It would be the first time since 1994 that they would not that they would, necessarily play each other, but if they do play each other, it would be the first time since 1994 where the Rangers did sweep the Islanders.
Wait, what?
If the Rangers and Islanders
each other, I meant just both make the playoffs.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying if they do somehow end up playing each other, it will be the first time since 94.
Oh, you're trying to be funny. Oh, okay.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it would be the first time they would. If they were to meet up, it would be the first time in like over 25 years or whatever it is. I'm not trying to be a wise guy.
Well, I don't think the Islanders would get swept per se, but
I didn't say they would get swept. I didn't say they would get swept.
I don't know. Well, I think the Rangers
said they
would
got
get
swept in '94. I didn't say they would get swept this year. whatever.
Yep. Well, looks like the McDonald's Wi-Fi is taking a pretty big pull out of that one. I didn't hear any of that last statement, but
It's
you know
whatever.
what?
It doesn't
We're
matter.
just gonna go ahead and end the stream here. So hopefully I can improve my Wi-Fi by the time that we go live on Friday. Just before we go, we want to give a big thank you to Linda, Mac, everybody here at the network for giving us a chance to host our own show. It's been a lot of fun so far. We're only 7 episodes in, but we're looking forward to not only covering the rest of the regular season, but into the playoffs and into the off season as well. So, Andrew, do you have any last minute comments for the people before we go?
Just have a good night. Stay safe, COVID around, and be well.
Couldn't have said it any better myself. For Andrew Marisi, I'm Carter Bentavenga. Have a good night, everybody, and we will see you on Friday.